Hello everyone, it's me Bryson P, and I have great news. I finally got my passport, which means we are another step closer to finally traveling to Scandinavia in 2022. I have a little fun fact for you also about passports. Did you know that over 68% of United States Americans do not either own a passport or have the capabilities of leaving the country if they needed to within 30 days? Never really gave it much thought, and I was a part of that until now. Anyways, today's video is going to be about the economy of Norway. Is it the perfect economy? We're going to find out. From Economics Explained, this is the first time ever reacting to this channel and checking them out. This video has been in my Watch Later profile for quite some time now, so we're going to finally start getting to a lot of these videos I've had in my Watch Later. Before I get started, I would like to say I hope each and every one of you did have a great holiday season, or Merry Christmas, or God Jul, if I said that correctly. Let's get started. Norway, is it the perfect economy? We're going to find out.
This is Norway. Norway is a remarkable country that has time and time again been used as the poster child for a socialist, capitalist, mixed economy done right. The country boasts one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world, falling only behind Switzerland and a select group of micronations. The country has a robust trade surplus, one of the highest national life expectancies, an extremely skilled workforce with one of the highest proportion of university graduates of any country in the world, a very, very low unemployment rate, and international recognition as a place that is very easy to do business. What is more remarkable?
Now, this video is a couple years old. I do believe it's from like 2018, so some of this information may be a little bit outdated compared to now, going into the year of 2022. We're only a week away, pretty much. Less than a week away, really. Wow, less than a week away. So it's only going to be a handful more days, and it's going to be 2022. So this information is going to obviously be a little skewed, especially with the pandemic, things being closed, and inflation. A lot of other things that are going on right now in the world, in the entire world, economically. So this is kind of going to be outdated, but we're going to still get a good picture.
Is that Norway has achieved this while also being one of the most economically equal countries in the world. After taxes, a single individual from the bottom 20% of income earners in Norway still earns on average a quarter of what their top 20% income earner would. Now, this still sounds pretty unfair, but compared to the OECD average, which has top fifth earners making an income 10 times that of their bottom fifth counterparts, this 4 times disparity is remarkably equal. The good news keeps on coming when considering working conditions. Norway has extremely robust workers' protections, meaning that social issues like working extremely long hours or people needing second jobs to support themselves is very rare. In fact, the OECD Better Life Index notes that only 3% of employees work very long hours when compared to the OECD average of 11% or the American average of 33%.
In my video where I compare how the United States treats its people compared to other parts of the world and other countries, I talked about myself many times wanting to get a second job or being in a place of needing a second income. But my mom, she works 12-hour days, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 12-hour days, and she does that. She's been doing that for years. 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, every week for years. Working 2 jobs.
All of this contributes to the citizens of Norway being some of the happiest in the world, despite their country looking like this for half the year. So, what is their secret? Norway, by all standards, should be the model that most citizens would want to replicate in their own countries. So why haven't other countries adopted similar economic policies to those in Norway? Is this country just a lucky outlier, or could this success be replicated in other economies around the world? Well, the truth is that Norway wasn't always this prosperous. This is Norway in the 1960s. It was an economy mainly based on fishing, with a GDP similar in size to underdeveloped countries like Bangladesh or Nigeria. Now, in fairness, Norway's population was and still is far smaller than these other countries, and the average Norwegian back then had a quality of life similar to their European neighbours in Spain or Greece. But Norway in the 1960s was still a far cry from the economic powerhouse it is today. This all started to change though in May of 1963, when the Norwegian government asserted sovereign rights over natural resources in this area of the North Sea.
Okay.
This was basically the government saying that this ocean here, this is ours now. Oh, if we happen to find any oil here, that's ours too. Now, fortunately, Norway was a member of NATO, and so it did not get the freedom treatment that other countries...
Oh. I was going to say more, before they put that in there, I was going to say, so they kind of did what the United States does and just, this is what we're going to claim and this is ours now.
Countries did when they tried out this nationalising business in the 1960s. But 6 years later, in 1969, a ship called the Ocean Viking struck oil in the North Sea. And from that, oil production in the region exploded, because they found a lot of oil. Like a lot. Like 1.6 million barrels a day a lot.
Whew.
This meant that in the mid-1970s, Norway produced more oil per capita than any other country in the world. And even today, it is only beaten out by Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia.
And where does the USA get a lot of its oil and a lot of the oil issues that we fight and everything else? The Middle East. We always talk about oil, and that oil will always be the issues for war in the world. Oil. And right there, Middle East and you guys. How about that? I did not honestly know that Norway was that rich in oil.
Now, I know what you are thinking, and no. This is not a story about another country that just got rich off oil and now everybody in the country is living like a freshly signed NFL player.
That's not what I was thinking.
It is actually the opposite. Rather than getting drunk off the oil wealth they had discovered, the Norwegian government was very prudent with the revenue from these finite resources. The oil boom caused Norway's GDP to grow over 5 times in the 1970s, growing from $12 billion to $65 billion in this period. But this newfound wealth was not being generated through private companies like Shell, Exxon or BP, but rather a publicly run and owned company called Statoil. This meant that the profits from oil and natural gas sales were not going to fill the pockets of private shareholders, but rather directly to the government. This made the Norwegian government very, very rich, meaning that if they wanted to, they could have easily gone on a public spending spree building fancy cities and public infrastructure while also reducing taxes, just like many other countries have done in a similar position. This kind of approach would have been very popular amongst citizens because short term it meant less taxes and a boost to quality of life. But they didn't. And today, income and business taxes in Norway are still amongst some of the highest in the world. Fortunately for Norway,
we've talked about taxes as well, not necessarily the taxes in Norway, but I did do a video many months ago on the Travel and Young channel about taxes and comparing my taxes with the taxes they were comparing.
The government had the foresight to realise that oil wealth was not forever, and that the citizens of Norway would not be satisfied if they had to go back to fishing in a generation's time. So, the government invested the money into a piggy bank. A very large piggy bank called a sovereign wealth fund. In fact, this is the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world, beating out China's State Investment Corporation, which is remarkable considering that China has a population 270 times larger than Norway's. This is a fund that belongs to the people of Norway. The rationale is that this oil and these natural resources were originally the property of the Norwegian people, and so it is they who should receive the revenue from the sale of those resources. This means that every man, woman, and child who is a citizen of Norway essentially has around $200,000 invested into what is a giant hedge fund. Now,
Okay.
this money is unfortunately not accessible by these citizens to spend on gold-plated Lamborghinis or super yachts. The money itself is actually not even accessible to the Norwegian government. In fact, only the profit generated from these investments is used to fund things like education, which helps to explain the very skilled workforce, a very strong welfare system, public infrastructure, and of course, reinvestment into the fund itself.
So you guys are exporters in oil then, right? Even though it's pretty well regulated and restricted and controlled, but you guys not only produce and maintain your own oil, but are able to export it and make profit and make value out of it. We have the capability of producing oil here, and we shut those things down, and we import a lot of oil. We're constantly buying oil from other countries.
In 2017, the fund made an incredible $131 billion from its investments. Now, this fund is a very diverse portfolio of stocks, bonds, cash, commodities, but what it does invest in is not nearly as interesting as what it does not invest in. The Norwegian government set up an ethical council that oversees investing decisions of all of the fund, and it has excluded investing in things like weapons manufacturers, tobacco companies, and companies that have caused severe environmental damage, or companies that have breached workers' rights and labour laws. Additionally, in an effort to diversify...
I like that. I mean, if that's how you guys feel to properly distribute and break up the stocks, bonds, and commodities and essentially have your portfolio, and you don't want to invest in companies that you don't have a good moral standing with, then why should you? I'm not going to invest and put my money into a company and hope for the growth of a company that I can't stand behind morally or have a true respect for. Right? Nothing wrong with that.
Where they get their money from, the fund is also forbidden to invest in fossil energy companies. Perhaps most interesting of all is that there is one country on the planet that is expressly forbidden to invest. And you could probably hazard a guess as to what that is. Yeah, that's right. It's good old Norway. This means that all of the investments of this fund are actually in foreign companies, securities and commodities. Now, despite the massive political power that gives Norway to influence foreign companies, it also means that the fund's performance is independent of the Norwegian economy. Now, this fund was a fantastic piece of forethought by the Norwegian government, and practically means that Norway is now the national equivalent of the guy that wins the lottery, keeps his day job, and invests his money into a stock portfolio. It certainly is not as cool, and it does not get as much attention as blowing it all on bombastic displays of wealth, but it does mean that they will be safe and secure for generations to come. To finish it up, it is only fair to look at some of the economic issues that are present in Norway. First and foremost is that it still has an incredibly high cost of living compared to wages. Given the very high taxes, the average Norwegian worker is bringing home about $3,200 a month.
It's not bad.
This is far higher than the US average of...
So $3,200 on average per month in US dollars, but that includes your health insurance, that includes a lot of other things that you would never have to consider, think about, and that includes, that's take home, so that's after everything. And as I've mentioned before, when we talk about these types of things, I make over double the national minimum wage here in the United States, but I still bring home, after taxes and everything else, I still bring home less than that every month, and I make more than double the minimum wage.
$2,730 per month, but it does not go nearly as far because Norway is an expensive place. A mid-range restaurant meal in America tends to run about $50 for two people without drinks. In Norway, expect to be paying about $92. A monthly utility bill for
That is a big difference, though. 50 to 92. The math, yep, I could see the average out to that. As far as $50 goes, depending on where you're at in the restaurant, it's definitely you could eat two people for $20 all the way up to 80, 90, 100. It kind of all depends on where you eat, really. That's the big kicker. It depends on where you eat.
US gas, electricity, water and garbage is expected to be about $130. That same bill in Norway is $176. A new, very basic family car, such as a base model Volkswagen Golf, can easily be had in America for around $20,000. In Norway, that same car would cost you $36,473, which is particularly ironic given the proximity to where these cars are actually manufactured. Now, the citizens of Norway do almost universally agree, though, that they are happy to put up with these high taxes and this incredibly high cost of living for everyday items because in return, they do not have to worry about serious economic hardship. Nobody in Norway is going to go bankrupt because of a medical situation. Nobody has to worry about taking on crippling debt to get an education, and they do not have the fear of being homeless if they lose their jobs. So
those are benefits right there. Those are wonderful benefits. And then on top of that, you also get, you guys get like 5, 6, 7 weeks off for vacation, if not more. And here I'm over here. I'm excited as can be with this because I get to take 2 weeks off and go across the ocean to another country for the first time in my life. And that's 2 weeks. Like I've said in other videos, I can't imagine what I would do with 5 or more.
Is Norway really the perfect economy? Should it be what every treasurer hangs a poster of above their bed to look at night? Well, no, not really. To anyone who has watched this channel before, all 2 of you, you will know that I am a huge fan of planned social democratic economic systems. And Norway is a great example of such a system. They have done everything right with the opportunities that they have been given, but they were still extremely lucky. And expecting that every country can get to where Norway is today just by copying and pasting their current government fiscal policies is foolish. That being said, if you do find yourself in charge of a country that has won the oil lottery or is riding the high of any other economic boom, Norway really should be the framework that you are working off.
That was Economics Explained, talking about Norway and is it the perfect economy. I do like at the end where he gave you kind of the disclaimer about the Norwegian model and the way that you guys are set up doesn't necessarily mean that that's a copy, cut, paste, cookie cutter setup for everywhere, because we all have our own differences and of course governments are ran completely different. But I do like the suggestion that it is a good framework, or at least a good solid structure to use. Like you said, if you find yourself in charge of a government or in charge of a country or have that capability someday. That is very true. And as we all get older, we should look at those things because you never know when you might be in a position of government or of power or of anything. And it's important, and I like learning about this stuff and learning about the differences between the things I know here in the United States and other countries, because it allows me, as I continue to grow through parts in my life where I'll be able to make decisions and hopefully make smarter or wealthier decisions because I've learned the differences or I've heard the differences. Those are big things, and that's why I enjoy making these videos. I hope you enjoyed this too, and I hope you have a great night, great day, whatever time it is that you see this. It's me, Bryson P. Goodbye.